Hot button.
Remember when the whole connection with the Guinness and like the drink and Guinness, the World Record Organization, suddenly became known to me during our Billy Mitchell series?
Yes.
Well, I was watching Red Letter's review of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and in the very beginning they do this bit with Coppola wine. I didn't know that wine was actually produced under director Francis Ford Coppola.
Would have been my first guess. It's the only
Yeah.
couple I know.
I don't like. I mean, or I guess it's his company or estate or whatever. But I followed I followed movies pretty closely during my life. Was employed at a theater. Also worked at a bar, incidentally, where we sold bottles of Coppola wine. And I never once thought they shared anything except the name.
I went a long time
It's
without
just
ever
weird.
knowing that Crystal Skull vodka came from Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd.
So
But that makes sense because it's not the same name. It's not like Aykroyd vodka.
Coppola could be a common name.
Yeah, it probably is.
Apparently, it's
But
not
how
even
many
that great.
Coppolas do you know with enough money to open a winery?
Well, that's,
Checkmate.
that is true. But the bottles themselves, the label is really like, doesn't, I mean, I don't think his full name is even on it.
No, I mean that's how Wayne Gretzky has a wine in Canada. It's called Gretzky Estates, and I saw that, and that doesn't have like a hockey player on it.
I would associate a prestigious filmmaker with wine. I don't know if I would do the same for a hockey player.
It's a dessert wine.
Nothing against, oh, all right.
Vin Diesel has his own kind of fuel, you know? So
Um, I don't think.
it's the most famous Diesel I know. It's the only person I know with enough money to start. No, go ahead.
Open
What
up
were you
an oil line.
So I think we can all agree here that making games is not easy. It's time-consuming, expensive, stressful. Even getting to the point where a single project can see release demands a near endless list of tasks to complete, purely to function. As the medium grew, so did the use of sharing engines between developers in an effort to alleviate some of these issues. Although, what if we were to try and give those same tools to the everyday person wishing to pursue the craft for themselves, create an equal playing field to studios of all shapes and sizes across the globe that shared a love for one of our favorite forms of expression and entertainment? So what would need to be done to accomplish this? Unreal was already becoming popular for similar reasons, but this had to be more accessible with a friendlier ease of use. It had to be cross-platform with support on every possible modern device under the sun, including those that integrate VR and mobile phones. Most of all, though, it had to sport an enticing price model. A reasonable license so that anyone, anywhere, regardless of capital, could start up their own in-house venture. And these weren't restricted to only video games either. Its assistance in 3D modeling has been adopted by loads of other industries: animation and film, cars, construction and architecture, robotics, really engineering in general. From 2005 to today and beyond, Unity continues to be a vital part of all things development. Its frequent updates to add new features has led to an innumerable amount of hardworking artists and programmers, big and small, to embrace as well as appreciate its contributions to the digital world. So why does it stink? This is Hot Button. I'm Randall Petrus, here with those infinitely more tech savvy than me, Austin Blakesley
Hello.
and Andrew Banks.
Infinite times 0 is still 0.
That's true.
Obviously, I was just teasing at the end of that intro there. So much that
Was
I
it?
tripped over my joke. I believe you both know my thoughts on this engine sometimes, though. And it's now time to convince me otherwise. Yeah?
Okay.
That's what this whole topic's about.
All right. So, before we get into the founding of the company and the engine, Unity,
Okay.
both called the exact same thing, which will get confusing later.
Cool.
Let's set the stage for where game development as a whole was at in the early 2000s.
The early aughts.
So let's play a little game to start. Throw out
Alright.
some engines you remember people using in the early 2000s.
Torque.
Renderware.
Renderware, yes. As Randy said, Unreal
Unreal, yeah. It
in
was,
the intro.
when did 2 come out?
Unreal 2?
Well,
Yeah, Unreal 2 would have been
Oh,
early
sorry.
aughts.
I was no, yeah. So I was getting the Quake 2 engine was the other one I was thinking of. It was
IdTech.
IdTech. Yeah.
IdTech is another one.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually
What was Valve?
Gold Source.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Valve,
old source.
Valve's Gold Source was based off of IdTech though. Like they got an IdTech disc and then spun off some stuff off of that.
I believe Unreal was also loosely based on IdTech as well.
I don't know that for a fact. That could be true.
Yeah.
Hmm.
If you want to learn more about Unreal's history, check out the Epic
That's
vs.
right.
Silicon Knights episode because I go over it a little bit in detail there. Yeah, I think you named all the big ones. The only other
Okay.
two that I could think of, because I tried to play this game on my own without Wikipediaing it or anything. The only other two I have on my list are Gamebryo,
Oh right.
Yeah.
which used to be called Net something. Morrowind, it wasn't called Gamebryo, but it's the same engine. And then in the Infinity engine, the BioWare engine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Which they later EA after buying BioWare renamed a new engine that Madden ran on, the Infinity engine, which only made everything more confusing
Yeah.
because it was not a top-down isometric RPG.
Yeah. It's funny whenever that happens, and it's like, oh, this engine wasn't actually built for this before, but then.
Oh no, that was
sometimes you run into
a
problems.
totally different engine with the same name.
Oh,
Yeah.
why did they do that then? They
question.
just liked the name so much they thought
Yep.
that
And then they made EA Ignite, and then they started making everything on Frostbite.
Frostbite.
Yeah. But yeah, many of the engines I named are very, very powerful, and we all know them for a reason. Their logos are at the beginning of a lot of games we all love and hold dearly.
The splash screens.
Yep. But there's one problem with everything we named. For the most part, it's all proprietary. I think the only exception to that might be Source, which is proprietary, but you can mod it.
Yeah, and they had a licensing agreement, but I think they made it pretty clear from the get-go that they weren't really going to push the licensing portion
I
of
was gonna
Source.
say what non-Valve projects use Source even today? I mean,
Titanfall.
Titanfall is the one that
Yeah.
That's why it feels so good.
Yes.
I like the Source engine. I don't know. There's probably CS people out there screaming.
But yeah, proprietary. For those of you that don't know what proprietary means, or a little overview here, basically, in order to use any of these engines to build a game, you probably had to have a couple lawyers behind you to draw up contracts, and you had to get in contact with Epic or id's lawyers and have them draw up contracts, and then come to some sort of agreement through a meeting with some more lawyers and pay a bunch of money.
How sorted?
Huh?
It's just like, yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
it's simple.
Easy. Yeah. Free engines for use by the general public were a thing, but we're talking like Game Maker and RPG Maker.
Hey, All on Miami made it work.
Yeah.
Oh, RPG Maker.
Yeah.
Those are on console too.
Yeah.
Mugen.
Mugen, yeah. But like
Shout out
not
to Salty Bang.
not terrible engines. I mean, one of my favorite games of all time, Hotline Miami, and
Yeah.
its sequel are made on Game Maker, but
Fucking A.
they were really only helpful for making simple 2D
Yeah,
games.
he works within the confines of
Hotline
what it's
Miami
the
is
engine
like
is
the
capable
best
of.
thing that anybody could make in Game Maker, essentially.
yeah.
Nothing wrong with Game Maker, though. Contrast this with software for the rest of the field of creative media, right?
Mhm.
Programs like the Adobe Suite, Photoshop, Premiere, Illustrator, After Effects, Final Cut Pro, and Autodesk software like CAD programs or Maya for 3D modeling.
You've probably used all of these. to a
Yeah.
degree.
I have. We can talk about how all these companies are now changing to shitty subscription models, or how maybe
Yeah.
Photoshop in the early aughts for $700 wasn't exactly affordable.
It was a lot more affordable on Pirate Bay, is what I understand.
Yeah,
but
I was
I'm
gonna
not,
say everyone had a cracked copy. Even people who used it professionally, like it was absurd.
I'm pretty sure that's why they moved to the subscription model.
Yes, all of this is true. It wasn't exactly
Hey,
affordable.
By the way, I can speak music, like audio software. It's just as bad.
yeah, but Logic and Reason are still
No, it's
under a grand.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of like Pro Tools and Reason and stuff switched to subscriptions too. Like,
Hell, we're using
Sonar.
Reaper. It's $30.
Right. Yeah. But it's
Um,
like when I was in college, that shit was like,
Yeah.
like $800, $900.
But yeah, not
Ugh.
something that you could theoretically just download off the internet, unless you do it illegally, and just go from amateur to pro and stuff. And for those people, there were open source alternatives, and some of those have been adopted. I think the best example is probably Blender is an open source alternative to Maya, and I think just as many pros use Blender as Maya now. It's become very popular, especially in 3D animation.
It was also a game engine. I think they dropped that recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say I can't think of any game that.
I'm sure we could find that on Wikipedia, but I don't know. Yeah, they were just like, oh, nobody's really using the game engine part.
like
They're just
the
using the
fucking-
modeling, so we're just gonna move forward with the modeling, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that game engines were not as accessible as everything else. You know, somebody who wanted to get into film could go buy a copy of Adobe's Premiere Pro or Apple's Final Cut Pro, and they would start editing video with all the same tools that the pros do. I mean, those two
Yeah.
softwares are used in Hollywood all the time, right? You know, it's the same with Photoshop. It's like if you see a picture in a magazine, it was digitally edited using Photoshop. You could theoretically spend a bunch of time in Photoshop and do that yourself if you have a
That's true.
subscription now, I guess. But games didn't have that. This didn't exist for amateur game development. To make a game, you had to build an engine, which isn't the easiest task, right? If you're one guy and you're
Kojima did it all by himself
Nah.
with
In a
his
cave.
bare
Nope.
hands
With a box of scraps.
with a box of scraps.
Resident Evil did it until I found out that that's not what RE actually stands for.
Reach for the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's way dumber.
Just it has a zombie hand.
Yeah, but he's reaching for a moon. So,
All right, continue.
Is moon spelled with an E in
I'm-
Japanese? Or
I'm annoyed all over again.
yeah, you had to build your own engine. Not an easy task. Not something that some guy who is really good at hand-drawn animation and wants to turn it into a video game could do like they can nowadays. But
Mhm.
a lot of people did. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, but there's a reason that there was an indie boom in the mid-2000s.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And we'll get there. One very important person to our story decided to do just that, build an engine for their game.
His name,
Now
or
let's
her name, or
let's
their name was.
you want me to tell you? Let's hop on a plane. Let's get in our time machine and go back to May of 2002. Then hop on a plane and go over to Copenhagen, Denmark.
How many planes we getting on?
Well,
Just-
we got to fly to the time machine and then fly to Denmark.
Exactly.
That's where it is.
Yeah.
To meet a man named Nicholas Francis,
Cool.
sitting alone in his apartment, posting on an OpenGL forum. You see, Francis.
How do you know he was alone? What if he had a cat?
That's true. He might have. I don't know how popular cats are in Denmark. Um,
Hey,
Francis was a bit of a masochist, in my opinion, and we'll get to a lot of those. But he was both an avid game
I was
developer.
gonna say anybody who develops video game has to be
Sure,
a bit
but
masochist.
That's me.
but
known
it's-
masochist.
let's go one step worse. Francis was both an avid game developer and an avid Mac user.
Oh.
That's true. That is masochism.
Yes.
Don't. The laptop recording this podcast will hear you.
Yeah. Tim Cook's gonna come beat us up.
No, he's got goons for that.
That's true. But yeah, he posted on a forum, and he asked if anybody would like to collaborate on an open source Mac shader compiler that he was making for himself, but also for other Mac game developers like him out there. He didn't get a lot of hits, I guess rightfully so, but a high school student from Germany by the name of Joachim Ante responded. Ante was working with a couple of his friends on his own game, and Ante was working on the engine for this game. So the two decided to, after some talking through the internet, the two decided to continue their own engine projects separately, but to collaborate on the shader part of it. So they wanted to
Got
build
it.
this open source shader for Mac, and they were going to do it remotely over the internet, which, to
Back
those of
then,
you out there
that's,
that don't know, that's not as easy in 2002.
It hasn't even been that easy in 2020.
No, it hasn't, but even worse back then.
yeah, I
Probably
bet.
a lot less exposing yourself on Zoom calls back then.
True. Yeah, back then when you exposed yourself, it was like a little like a stamp-sized.
You had to wait for it to load line by line.
Yeah.
You know, like very slowly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Xbox
the whole
Live
thing.
Vision camera.
Yeah, where everybody just exposed themselves on Uno or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, people just doing blow in the corner.
Yeah.
Just putting their custom faces on the Rainbow Six character. But it was
Yes.
just
Oh my
their
god, it
penis
was.
or whatever.
Yeah, it was. It's like it was just like a JPEG wrapped around a 3D head. I remember in Burnout 2, there was or Burnout 3. I meant Burnout TOO. Or no, not 3. Paradise.
Paradise,
Sorry,
yeah.
that had the ID system.
Yeah.
And so I remember playing against someone online that, like, when they passed me their ID, the picture was just an ass.
We put a lot of trust in people on the internet for a while there.
Yep.
He got the best of me, though.
Yeah, he did. So, after working on the internet for a while, the two decided to finally meet up in person. So, Auntie flew on over to Denmark, to Copenhagen, and the two met up, and they realized what you all probably thought when I said that they decided to continue their own engine project separately. Why not just build the engine together?
Hey.
They decided to do exactly that. They decided to combine forces on one single game engine. So they camped out in the apartment of Francis's friend, David Helgeson, while he was out of town, and they spent several days merging their code bases and choosing features from each other's engines to add together into one engine. So, a new plan started to take shape. The plan was to start a game studio together, making games, but more importantly, make a robust tech backing for said games that they could then license out.
Cool. Yeah.
And Helgeson, Francis's friend, when he got back into town, heard what they were doing and helped out where he could. But he had a full-time job already. He was part of a web development firm, which he owned a small stake in. And so that was his day job, and then helping them was sort of his free time job.
Yeah.
Until he said, you know what, fuck web development. He sold his stake in his web development firm, and he was brought on full-time onto this new project. At the same time, Joachim Ante finally up and moved from Germany to Copenhagen. He got an apartment with Francis, and the three worked out of this new apartment while Helgeson lived down the street in the apartment that they started the company in, and also worked at a cafe on the side.
Oh.
Not to support the company financially because it didn't pay well enough, but to get free food for all three of
Oh
them.
my god. That's sadder, I think.
Uh-huh.
Like that member of the Offspring who they only got into the band because he was old enough to buy beer, right?
Mhm.
That was like a rock band loading screen tip or something.
That's great.
Um,
Oh, I miss those facts.
So, this continued for a while, and throughout 2003, the team spent time both working on the engine, but also bringing in a rotating cast of helpful volunteers to work on a bunch of different prototypes.
Ooh.
A couple of ideas they pitched, a couple ideas that their friends and volunteers pitched, but it was a bunch of different game ideas. I don't have exactly any information on what games they made, but I can tell you that none of these prototypes panned out into anything that they thought would sell. However,
All right.
the sheer range of ideas that they tried led to them having to implement different stuff into this engine every time.
Okay.
And over
that's still
time,
valuable.
And over time, they realized that the technology they were building was actually starting to become useful in a wide range of cases. You see, back then, game engines were constructed around a single game for the most part. There are a couple examples.
Yeah, but
where that
for the most
doesn't
part,
work. But like,
it was kind of disposable. Like,
yeah, there's shit that you have to modify, like the story of like a lot of games ran on Unreal 3, right? But like Unreal 3, there
saw
were
that
still
more
a
in
lot
the
of
360.
they basically had to
PS3 era.
provide the source code to people so that they could hack it apart and put it back together. That's the famous Irrational story with BioShock, where it's like, yeah, it runs on
yeah.
Unreal 3, but there's only like 30% of their code left after we were done or something.
Well, on Bioshock Infinite, right?
Infinite, yeah, sorry. BioShock Infinite. Because BioShock 1 was made on Unreal 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
or Unreal Warfare, which I think, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
It gets confusing.
Yes.
Should have just used better numbers.
Yes. Yes, they should have.
I mean, they're now they're making it a bit simpler because they just went from 4 to 5, and
Yeah,
Right,
I mean, yep. And after about like I
Three,
don't know,
four,
like
five.
86 revisions to 4.
But
But yeah,
yes, yeah.
it was like-
I don't think did Unreal sorry, not to jump ahead
That's all
in
right.
the timeline too much, but Unreal 3 I feel like really cemented its like legacy in gaming history.
Yes.
Little less of that with 4, in my opinion.
is that a we'll get there?
I mean, other than
No.
Again, I mean, that's
It's funny because we talked
with
about
Unity
this
and that one.
in the Silicon Knights episode, but that was
years
so
ago.
long ago
Yeah.
that I think
Because it was like by then we were like, okay, well, Fortnite uses it, right? And then
it cemented its Unreal. Unreal is used a lot
PUBG.
these days.
it is, but I mean,
But again,
Not as
we're
much.
we're talking about like the difference between like the big boys using Unreal and like it's more game development is a little bit more democratized now to the point where like
right.
you see that Unreal logo all the time, but it's not like plastered at the front of like the biggest
I think
fucking.
can't you pay to have that screen technically not?
Yeah,
be
you can do
there?
that in all of them.
Right. I mean, indie devs wouldn't do that, but their development is mostly shifted over to Unity anyway. But I guess it's just
That is
will get to
that
it.
is a will get
Okay.
there. Actually,
I guess the last thing I'll say is just I guess Unreal 5 just got announced a couple months ago now.
it's in early access right now, I believe.
Oh wow.
For
Yeah,
certain people.
Developer, yeah, some developers are able to get their hands on it
And
right
Yeah.
now.
it looks impressive. It's just, I guess, maybe this is just me like getting older and how you process time, but it's like it didn't feel like there was a lot in between 4 and 5 as much as 3 to 4.
That's again, that's a will get there. But
Okay.
like there is a move away from numbering in a lot of these engines.
Right.
There's a move away from numbering in a lot of software, like and they're catching up now, but like when we're talking about people torrenting Photoshop before and we're talking about like them move to the subscription model, it went from Photoshop CS6 to Photoshop 2020 and then they randomly one day they'll just install 2021 on my computer and then I have to go back and uninstall 2020 because it doesn't do that. Ah, God, Adobe, you suck.
Did the NetherRealm games still use Unreal 3?
To my knowledge, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, they could have upgraded it and just like never bothered to tell
Sure.
anyone because why do they need to? You know,
Fair enough.
we're not their bosses.
I mean, it's clearly not holding them back in any way, and if it is,
I don't. Yeah, at this point they would need to probably upgrade. Unreal 3 is not supported anymore.
So
Like
Not
if
with
you
new-
went to Epic and were like, "Hey, we're having problems with Unreal 3," they'd help you if you're NetherRealm, but like they'd
Right.
probably also be like, "Hey, you think about maybe moving to 4?" Because wasn't it Guilty Gear Zerd was the one that figured out how to make Unreal 3 do 60 FPS or something like that?
Wow, that far after the
Yeah.
effect?
no, I mean, like Guilty Gear Xrd is on Unreal 3, but I don't know that it. If it figured anything out about Unreal, it wasn't that it got it to 60 FPS.
I remember there's a Giant Bomb cast where they're talking to Dave Lang, and
Mhm.
he specifically brings up Zerd because they figured out something having to do with fighting games in Unreal that he was just like, whoa, as a fighting game developer.
Yeah,
I
that's true.
don't recall what that is.
Hmm.
I could speak more to Unreal 4 and fighting games. People were concerned about input delay and getting that as low as possible, especially because Street Fighter 5 came out on Unreal 4 and had at launch, they've got this number down a fair amount, but at launch it was 8 frames of input delay, which is a lot. And I think now it's down to like 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah. And to give you
X many years later.
yeah, to give you
5 years.
to give you a frame of reference, I think the best that any fighting game has ever done is like 2 frames of input delay from, physical pressing of a button
Yeah,
to registering
till-
an action on
yeah.
screen. And I'm pretty sure that most hit around 3 to 4. So
Okay, so
And-
they got it to an acceptable standard.
yeah, and Smash I think is at like 6, at least when you play online.
When you play online.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, this engine is becoming useful in most use cases now, not just for a specific game.
Mhm.
In addition, the trio had a decision to make, which is like, well, what do we target, right? We want to target indie developers. Where are indie developers? Keep in mind this is 2003.
Right.
So, like, Xbox Live Arcade isn't a thing yet. Steam is just a twinkle in Gabe Newell's eye. So like
In 2003? Nah, it was getting along
Yeah,
there.
Half-Life 2
There-
was
I
so
know.
formative.
I know. But where were
We
most
covered that.
where were most of the indie games, Randy?
At this point in time, Flash games online. Yeah, it was
Exactly.
Newgrounds and stuff.
And
right?
Flash sucks.
Hey, there wouldn't be a
Flash is
Alien
very
Hominid and N
Flash is
Plus
very
and
cool.
Super Meat Boy.
Flash is very cool on your end of things. It's not very cool for the people making the show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
But that was where the indie
Fair.
audience was.
that's fair.
And also Flash, again,
Yeah.
2D. So,
Yeah.
Our trio decides we're not gonna, well, for right now, we're not gonna take down the big guys. You know, we're not gonna get a license over Unreal or
Yeah,
id Tech or whatever.
I just read Trials. That was Flash too.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
A lot
yeah,
of goodies.
But we're not gonna license this out to somebody. We're not gonna compete with Unreal. We want to hit
Yeah.
we want to hit the people like us. We want to hit that indie market, right? So they decide we're gonna build the definitive tool to do 3D on the web.
Yes. Okay. So which is interesting. Which I'm all right. So I'm not gonna reveal this part, but I do remember getting into a discussion with you about Unity a few months ago, and it was revealed to me that this conceptually was all supposed to be an answer to 3D, like of how to
It's a
do
3D. It's a 3D Flash that's way easier to develop. in,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Essentially.
which shaped a lot, I think, of my understanding of
Yes.
its intended purpose.
So we're gonna go ahead to 2004 now.
Good year for games.
Our team is their engine is coming along. And they decide, you know what? Time to legitimize this business. We're all in on it. We're surviving off cafe food. Why don't we find some investors, get some money, and make this thing real? So they took out a massive loan, got an office building, and hired some additional engineers,
Oh.
as you do when you're building a company. And one thing that they were missing was somebody to lead the business side of things. The group then put out an ad, which I didn't know you could do this, but I guess 2004 was a different time.
Craigslist.
They put out they essentially put out a Craigslist ad for a CEO, which like I didn't know you could do that.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, come on. You'd answer that ad. Let's
Hell
be honest.
yeah. Absolutely.
You think it was a scam, probably.
Yeah.
But like I said Craigslist because I thought that was like I was doing a funny. That's
It's literally like a monster.com ad being like, hey, we need a CEO.
oh, I mean, why can't you do that? Right?
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
We ever get big enough, that's what we're doing.
What caliber of CEO do you want?
That's
Do you want the kind who looks on Craigslist for offers, or do
Absolutely.
you want a good one?
how I
So,
know they're tough.
it's
I mean,
fu-
clearly it worked out for these guys to some.
No.
Oh, never
It's
mind.
funny Andrew brings that up
Oh.
because let's just say the candidates that answered that ad were underwhelming to say the least.
I like crazy people. Like, just-
Yeah. So originally they realized that they weren't going to find anybody this way, and they didn't have the pull to like hire away a CEO nor the money. So they just kind of decided, hey, we'll just trade off being CEO for a while, and then it turned out that Dave,
I'll take Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You take
Yeah.
Tuesday.
I'll get
Thursday,
the weekend.
Saturday.
But it turned out that as programmers go, I think 1 in 3 is probably a good estimate for how many programmers also have social skills.
Wait, let me. Okay, that checks out.
Yeah. But yeah, Dave Helgeson turned out to be the best at that social part of the job. Not
Nice.
just that, but he had experience in the merging of the business and tech worlds because he owned
Hey.
a stake in that web development firm. So
Good.
Dave Helgeson became CEO. And it's also at this point, I think he officially became co-founder
It's-
because originally just the two were co-founders.
Is he still CEO today?
I believe so, yeah.
All right.
So we also have, we got to file some paperwork
Oh.
in addition because, starting a company, you got to file some paperwork. So at this point, the group incorporated. And they incorporated it under the name Over the Edge Entertainment. Started drawing up a business
Really?
plan. Yeah.
Okay.
Started drawing up a business plan in order to pull in some investors so they didn't have to take out another massive loan.
Wait, you say over the edge or over the hedge?
Over the Edge.
They were big fans of DreamWorks.
Yeah.
It was just tearing up the charts back then.
Their logo is just all those wacky animals. I never saw it.
I mean, hey, their engine would go on to be used in a lot of licensed games.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, maybe one of the over the edge games has the.
yeah. But more importantly, they had to start forming a business plan.
Yeah.
You know? Again, programmers, I'd say it's less than 1 in 3 that know how to actually make money not working for somebody else. So they looked at 2 very important sources of inspiration in determining their business plan. Number
Who
1,
we got?
British developer Criterion.
Hey. I mean, yo, the Renderware engine, it's a hell of a fucking
Exactly.
like the GTA games were made on it.
Yep. Owned by EA and famous for making the best racing game of all time,
This is
Burnout 3.
Factually incorrect. As good as Burnout 3 is, I'm sorry, but it's not F-Zero GX.
God, they're both my babies.
You got to pick one.
It's F-Zero GX.
I abstain.
Which one has yellow card?
Which one has it? You're going the wrong way.
Hold on, I do have to add something onto this though to dodge the answer, but also to I think this is kind of an entertaining fact. I didn't realize that like the Renderware engine wasn't owned by EA until EA acquired Criterion.
Are you gonna say they were formed under Canon, the camera company?
Oh no, I didn't know
You
that.
didn't know that?
No, what I was gonna say is that's why GTA 4 is made on the engine or why why they started developing an in-house thing with Rockstar's table tennis and all that. Like
yeah.
that was all a response to them losing access to that engine.
Oh.
And I think they were mid-development on. It might have been like the Liberty City or Vice City Stories games or something.
Okay.
But I think the acquisition actually happened earlier than that. When they were doing San Andreas, and like as per the deal, they were only able to like finish what they started. They couldn't fire up any new projects, so like they were working on San Andreas and the PSP ones. And once those were complete, then they were no longer allowed to use it.
This checks out with what I know about software contracts.
Okay, yeah. So like, but I found that really interesting because then that's why they just invested a whole bunch of money into now essentially what all of their big games
Also,
run on. And
to go back to it, fun fact for you: Criterion was formed as a division of Canon, the camera company.
I honestly did not know
they
that.
were formed as Criterion Technologies.
Man,
Which is why they're so good at game engines, because Canon was trying to get into multimedia shit. Canon essentially wanted to get into game development. I mean, you think about Canon's real big into photography as well as filmography, because
yeah.
that they make every film camera up to that point, So they wanted to start getting into the areas that they weren't already like in, so like music and video games.
Yeah.
So they formed Criterion in order to get into that. It failed, and then EA bought Criterion from Canon.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I mean, but like, would you consider that a failure? I mean, by then they did like Burnout 1 and 2 and stuff were out.
Did
but
it
I
make
guess-
money?
It made enough money for them to
Did
get
it?
sequels. I don't,
I don't know. I don't know.
No, yeah, it made money, but like,
but not,
yeah,
Canon money. I
Canon
guess.
wanted out of that business.
Sure. Yeah.
just like every
I
big
don't
tech
blame them,
company
but-
who goes, you know what, we could make video games.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh
And
no,
they're like,
this
oh
is
fuck, this sucks,
Yeah,
and then
this
they
is
want it
such
out.
a pain in the ass.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, we just saw a trailer for the first Amazon video game, right?
Yeah, when they start Amazon Game Studios, like 6 years ago,
I don't know. When did they murder Killer Instinct?
about 6 years ago.
Oh man, yeah. What is it? They unreleased one of their games, and then the other. Wait, what? Did the other one ever come out either?
The Old World or whatever it's called.
the
New
MMO
World
thing?
New World.
Secret World.
New World.
New World.
Secret World's a different thing.
Okay,
Secret
sorry.
World's a different thing.
But Crucible's dead as hell.
There was a trailer for that sometime recently. That went into beta, and then people were like, and then they're like, okay.
Is the new one
pull
on
it back.
Lumberyard too?
Yeah. Lumberyard, a fork of CryEngine.
Yes. It's worked out well for them so far. I like
Yes.
it. But no, that's super cool. As somebody who has religiously played a lot of hours of Criterion games in their life, I was not aware
Okay.
that
But
there was a connection.
Criterion was famous for being owned by EA and making Burnout, but
Mhm.
they
And
were
black.
successful because of Renderware.
Yes.
Renderware was everywhere. They were killing
All
it
over.
in the middleware market.
Yeah.
In fact, the fact you brought up about EA taking that engine away from people is
Mhm.
kind of what led to the rise of Unreal. Three.
Oh, interesting.
Because Renderware was like
Yeah.
the Unreal 3 of the
Totally.
Xbox, PlayStation 2, GameCube era.
Yeah. So many of
Basically,
those
Renderware
games
was
I-
like the easiest way to make a PS2 game.
Yeah.
So they were fucking killing it. But their business plan, more importantly, was not just to create this technology, but to create multiple AAA titles using the technology so that people could see its use,
Mhm.
see how it performed, see what it was used for, and that would make people feel more comfortable in licensing it. So essentially, Burnout 1 is like not much of a game compared to 2 and 3, and that's kind of
Yeah.
because
It's very arcadey. It's simple.
it's an ad for Renderware. It's an
Yeah.
ad for people to license Renderware.
but hey, those
essentially.
crashes were impressive back
They
then.
were.
It
They
saved your
certainly were.
replays.
Did you buy that ad, Randy?
I bought that ad recently for the original Xbox. And their second source of inspiration, being that they were huge Apple fans, was Final Cut Pro.
Huh.
Because, like I said at the beginning, Final Cut Pro was, big air quotes here
Yeah, I
for those
can see,
listening,
yeah.
reasonably priced. I think we're talking about like $600 for a license.
Okay, I kind of get in comparison to other what
Exactly.
you're saying. Yeah.
Simple to use for the amateur, but extremely robust for the professional, right? So we're talking about something that you can use it like Windows Movie Maker, right? And you can just put clips together and then do a star wipe between them, or you can do some crazy fucking shit in Final Cut Pro.
Yeah.
So
You can make that star wipe spin around.
as we talked about at the beginning, their big inspiration was to make something like Renderware that indies could use and afford, and that would be simple.
Yeah.
So,
Makes sense. Noble.
the team spent 5 months of 2004 and a little bit of 2005. We're now into 2005, creating a game called Goo Ball
Okay, so is this the first?
Unity game.
Yeah, like that's actually like, well, commercially released that you can play.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You'll remember it, of course, because it tore up the charts.
Yeah, the Goo Ball.
No one could stop
Ball
talking
fan.
about Goo Ball.
I mean, I'm sure you'll discuss it more, but I'm gonna say, did you play it, or did anyone ever play it?
Yes, I played it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What was it on?
Mac.
It was on Mac. Okay.
It was.
Yeah. What do you do?
It's pretty much a worse version of Monkey Ball with the added mechanic.
Oh, I love Monkey Ball.
with the added mechanic of it being Goo Ball, so you could hold the button down and get your ball to stick. That was.
Okay, no more T-spinning in Tetris.
No deal.
But more importantly for our story here today, as Andrew sarcastically hinted at, Goo Ball didn't exactly tore up the charts. But what it did do was it gave the team, because like I said, they built a lot of prototypes in Unity constantly in order to refine the engine, but they never made a game from start to finish
Mm.
in Unity. So like
Except for Goo Ball.
this kind of gave them, that Goo Ball gave them the opportunity to realize what it was like to make a game in their own software and then kind of like find more bugs,
Yeah.
like test it out, smooth out some of the features, and more importantly, remove a lot of the annoyances.
It's called eating your own dog food.
Yes. Is it?
You never had like an eating your own dog food meeting at work? No?
No.
Oh.
Where do you work in a dog food company?
No.
I've tried dog food.
No, that's called it's because if you're just building a tool for someone else and not using it yourself, then you're not seeing what they are experiencing, you know?
Ah.
So yeah, eating
I
your own
like
dog
I
yeah.
like that metaphor.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Um, yeah. And also, this is where we get the name, because we're getting closer and closer to launch. They looked at the engine's ability not only for collaboration, but also its intended power of cross-compatibility across platforms, and settled on the name Unity.
Okay. I mean, that's an appropriate name.
Yeah, it's a good name. It's
Yeah.
one word. It, sticks in people's minds.
I'm still thinking of the dog food thing, by the way. Do you remember when who bought? It might have been Chelsea bought the Oreos that were
Yeah.
like for dogs. Like we got them for our, and we were like, well, let's try them because we needed to know. And so here's the thing, they kind of taste like sort of like just really bad old Oreos,
Yeah.
but the thing that was really funny is that when we had our friend Dave try them, he read the bag, and it's like they're mostly protein because they're dog treats. So he started calling them Gaines Oreos.
Oh, yeah.
Because like dog treats are really caloric.
Yeah.
So it's like, imagine, they're the size of mini Oreos. So it's
Yeah.
like, imagine a mini Oreo, but if it was just like 100 calories pressed into it or something.
Yeah, with chock full of protein. Yeah.
And obviously not real chocolate, but it's just like, they're just like worse Oreos in, I guess, every way because they're also unhealthy. Unless you're working out all the time, which I clearly am.
Okay. So,
Sorry, I just figured that.
Yeah.
Had to be in.
so
This episode's too on the rails, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
yeah. Yeah, you got to keep me on my toes, I guess. It's been a while since I hosted one. Got to take the rust off and learn how to get this shit back on track. But yeah,
Baptism by fire, man.
team used the profits from Gooball along with a loan from Auntie's father to hire some more engineers. Did I say Gooball came out in March 2005? I don't know.
It came out for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if I said March 2005, but we're now in March 2005.
Everybody's playing Gooball.
And we're hiring more engineers to fix up the engine and ready it for its public release planned in June of 2005.
Exclusively on Mac.
Now, before we get into Unity's actual release, for those of you that don't know, Andrew, who has used Unity before like I have, is going to give you a little rundown of what a game engine is and does, and also what Unity is.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
All right, so a game engine is basically just going to be a whole bunch of reusable code that you can put together in different ways to make your game. And a lot of this includes like IDE tools, which is just a fancy programmer acronym for, hey, you type in code here, you test it here, and it'll complete your code and things like that. Some of that comes with it. In Unity's case in particular, the reason why it becomes so easy at a beginner level, especially like you were saying,
Yeah.
is that it does, in getting a little computer sciencey here, an entity component model, which basically means anything that is in your game scene, you can attach a component to it, and it knows what to do with it. So, as an example, if you attach a collider to a thing, then when it touches another thing, it knows what to do about it, whether that's bounce or to stop moving or whatever. So
I know collision detection is like one of the hardest things, like for
it can be.
the thread, yeah.
Sure, but that's a thing that the engine provides to you, right?
Yeah.
So if you just have two objects in a scene and they both have colliders, when they touch, then the engine knows what to do with it. And that kind of stuff can be very low code. So you can just kind of drag things into your scene and then it knows what to do based on where they are and what components
So
they have.
it's like already accounting for a lot of the little things and
Exactly.
doing the legwork. That
So yeah, and this is true of all softwares. Whenever you have a platform like this that you're trying to license out, you're
Yeah.
trying to cover all of the most common use cases the best you can, while also still, like you were saying, give you the power for a pro to be able to do the minutia that maybe not everyone is doing. So yeah, it like I said, that's kind of the benefit to Unity, and like by contrast, the benefit to something like Unreal would be that they have the ability to code a game with no code. You can just drag and drop a graph basically of you start here and it does this, then it does this, and you're just dragging boxes around. Not unlike kind of what Dreams does now. You
Yeah.
know?
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know there was such a key difference between. To me, that I thought what they provided was different versions of one and the same, but that's
Yeah, so I mean, like, yeah, ultimately, it really a game engine
Some
is
key
a
factors, yeah.
set of tools to handle a bunch of common game code use cases.
yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Do most of the coding that people don't want to do for you.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you
Don't-
think at any point that sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
That's fine.
that like Dream is not necessarily landing with the impact that I think that they wanted for a few reasons. But I at least when people were kind of being vocal about its like I don't know what to say without it being like sounding really mean.
Go for it.
I am not Dreams. I won't be offended.
Yeah.
I guess, but it was like there was a lot of articles about its sort of perceived importance at the time, and I guess Nintendo literally just yesterday put out that
Code Garage or what's that
Yeah.
called?
Garage Maker or something.
Whatever it's called.
Yeah, and which to me serves kind or fits in a similar mold in that it's like, hey, we're gonna funify like the you know, like, especially because it's Dreams is a PS4 PS5 game and this is a Switch game, but they seem sort of like limiting in the sense of like I don't think we're gonna see full or even like we're not gonna see releases that cost money that are made with these. They seem a little bit more like short, fun experiences.
Sure,
and,
and Nintendo's is kind of aimed more at kids. It's
right.
like
It's in the shoes
my
of Mario
first
Maker
game
and
engine
stuff.
kind of stuff.
No, it's
Whereas-
undeniably cool, and I think that all the things that Dreams is technically capable of doing is impressive. But
Yeah, the part they fucked up about Dreams is just like it should have had a thing where you could export it and upload it to something that people who don't
Exactly.
own Dreams could find.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
is there a free version of Dreams where you could just
Yes.
play
I
the
think so,
games
yes.
now? Okay,
But still not the same.
And
Yeah.
and I would say like I mean some of
I
this
really respect Media Molecules of Coney, but they took
Yeah.
way too long for that to come out, and then they released it between generations, which
Yeah.
was
And the other thing too, from my perspective, as somebody who's not touched Dreams, but I've seen a good number of demos on it, is that it's like it doesn't seem like you have the ability to texture anything. You just kind of use like their pre-made like shapes and stuff and color.
I think
colorize
there's
those.
like a 3D modeler in it. I don't know how precise you can get with only being able to use a controller or the wands.
Mhm.
It's,
Unless it has keyboard and mouse support.
people can get pretty precise.
PS4 games do.
Yeah,
Some do.
I mean, like really, like the strength of that is that after the game is built, you can load up one game and then another very quickly,
That's true.
and I think that's
Yeah.
very cool. But also, it's like whenever you want to do anything that maybe is hard to do in that engine, or anything you want to monetize, or anything that they just plain didn't account for. There are so many use cases where you're immediately just going to be going to something that made it easy, like Unity. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean,
Um,
when we dicked around with Dreams a little bit, Austin, like the way that they compiled, like their whole like online, it was not
No.
utilized well.
Yeah.
It did not do a very good job of sort of like promoting the type of
Mhm.
games you would want to showcase, and then other just anybody could upload any kind of dumb horseshit, and they did. And I'm that was probably the same thing happened with Little Big Planet as well, because you had people like making a working mathematical calculator in Little Big Planet, but then you would also in both of these games just get like a kind of a bunch of nothing sometimes, just like and it's
Mario
cool-
1-1.
yeah, and it's like you can make even that's more something. I
Yeah.
more meant like even things that are barely
Oh, yeah.
work or unplayable because they don't have a sort of system in place to pull out garbage, like yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there are a lot of really talented artists out there who are like composing music with
I think
Dreams and
I think the
all
good
this
thing
crazy stuff.
I think the good thing that Dreams, and to a lesser, I haven't touched the Nintendo thing yet, but to a lesser extent something like that is like to remove barriers and give people a taste for game development. Because as-
definitely the Nintendo.
know
thing,
how
if not
fucking
Dreams,
hard it
yeah.
is, and
Yeah,
they
well,
never want to do
yeah,
it.
yes, but also like once you understand the logic of how a game operates under the surface, something like Unity and Unreal,
Yeah.
you can download for free and they don't seem so daunting.
Yeah, and at least understanding the language,
Mhm.
both in a literal sense and a grander sense. That it's like there
Exactly,
are
exactly.
terminologies, but also there are just things that remain
Hmm.
consistent through whatever you're using, and
Okay. So yeah, that's
they're valuable.
That's a game
Some
engine,
criticism.
and that's what Unity does.
Mm.
So now let's talk about post-launch Unity. Unity, like I said, was launched in June of 2005, and Unity's 1.0 launch was primitive, to say the least.
All right.
The initial launch only supported building projects for Mac OS X.
Oh,
The most popular
as-
platform.
for gaming, absolutely.
as and not many of the features that I even know Unity for. I jumped into Unity at Unity 3, which we'll get to. But Microsoft Windows, and more importantly, their original design web browsers, came in their first update, version 1.1, in August of 2005, so just 2 months later.
Okay.
But Helgeson was quoted in an interview of talking about the launch, saying, "The ridiculous and bizarre thing was literally the first and only platform we supported in the very first few months was the Mac. This was before the Mac's resurgence, and the Mac's place in the gaming industry, especially compared to Windows, was even punier than it is today."
There was no Justin Long yet.
Yeah.
No, it's a good save because I was like, Max place in gaming history, huh?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean,
It was the worst possible choice we could have made from a business perspective.
who was the Dell in those ads?
It was
John Hodgman.
John Hodgman.
That's
yeah.
right. Yes,
Trying to read a
Hodge
quote.
Jodgman. Sorry.
It was the worst possible choice we could make from a business perspective. But we were just hackers, and we just liked our Macs. We weren't
Hackers.
thinking big thoughts from a business perspective.
Hmm.
More importantly, we talked about affordable, quote unquote, air quotes. The pricing structure initially for Unity was 2 separate licenses. The Unity Indie license for $200, or the
That's
Unity
cheap.
Pro license for $1,500.
What was the key differences between the two?
Features that we don't need to get into, things like soft body physics or something like that,
All right.
soft shadows, but most importantly, publishing to Windows
Oh,
was locked behind the professional license.
that's a big one.
Also, as a part of Unity's terms of service, any corporate entity making over $100,000 in the previous fiscal year could not use Unity's Indie license for development.
So there you go. Somebody drew a
Right.
line in the sand and said, "This is what an indie is."
Yeah,
About
that's it. And from here on out, there was never confusion again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a rich indie.
What about triple I? Double A?
Quadruple A.
Yep.
No, quadruple A is supposed to be what Perfect Dark is going to be, right? Which is-
Exactly. It'll be the first quadruple A game. I can't wait to see the A inflation in video game development when, 70 years from now, we're up to 70XA game studios.
I love Perfect Dark, but that is such a strange, this is what we're going to dump the most money in ever.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Rockstar's, GTA 6 is just like a folder in a break room somewhere that they're just like, "Oh, we're going to have 20 A's on this." And it's- when it comes out in, fucking another decade.
Another important point to make is that, so back in these days, there were a lot of open source engines that people tried to make, but making a game engine is fucking hard. Harder than making a game. In fact, it's the hardest part of making a game.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them got abandoned. So let's just say,
Who's in the graveyard?
I don't know. I don't have any names.
All right.
But
I was just curious.
But in these early days, it was mostly enthusiasts making games in Unity. Hobbyists would be, I guess, the correct term. Because in order for a company to trust Unity, they had to prove their worth. So
Prove it your worth.
yeah, but they did. The crew kept updating Unity almost monthly. I'd say monthly to bi-monthly. And while constantly talking to the community and taking feedback. And we have a quote. I don't know who this is from. It's one of the developers. We were developers developing for other developers. We understood their problems and tried to fix them.
Development.
We spoke to them. It'd be a case of not being able to sleep at night and thinking, I wonder what's going on in the forums. It was all hours of the day. I think they recognized that, and then those customers that we had started evangelizing it for us. So they basically talked to their customers that they did have and started working on 2 feature sets. The first being minor updates, Unity 1.2, Unity 1.3, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then major updates. And the biggest step towards proving themselves would come in October of 2007, which is when Unity 2.0 released, which the developers would be quoted as saying is the biggest step forward that their company has ever taken.
They
I don't know if
stand
I'd
by
say
that even
that, but-
today? Or
Yeah, they say that, but
I don't know. They supported the Ouya, and that seemed like it was no joke. I still come across. Okay,
Or
so
more on that. Or sorry, what the what would the Stradivarius of consoles? That's
Yeah.
I still come across some code, like if you do code completion or whatever, and it's so basically in an IDE that I was talking about earlier, and it like completes some code for you, so you don't have to like remember the exact command for something. So I'll hit like dot and then like scroll through like platforms or whatever or different function calls, and I'll still see the Ouya in the Unity code there from time to time,
Oh
just
my
because
God.
like they accommodated it,
Yeah.
like it's in there, and every time I see it, I laugh.
I hope it stays there forever.
Also, I think the Vita is called the PSP2 in that code, just because like they came.
They never went back and.
Nah, I guess not.
All right.
That's
I mean,
it's
now
going
I
from memory, but yeah, it always makes me laugh to see the Ouya in that code.
Yeah, it's funny. I agree.
it is. We have a whole episode on that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, this update included over 50 additional features, including but not limited to, because I'm not going to list them all, web streaming support, real-time dynamic shadows, a 3D terrain engine,
Ooh.
video playback, networking support built in, and most importantly, DirectX support,
I love that one.
which improved performance on Windows platforms by 30%.
Yeah.
Yes. They also, in 2007, started their own conference, which is still going to this day, called the Unite Conference
I mean,
in
they
Copenhagen.
may not have done it last year, but
They probably did, but I think they still have a 2021 one going on in Copenhagen.
maybe they'll be more organized than E3.
Maybe. We'll see. But that is where 2.0 was revealed and released at that first conference.
Yeah.
Still, I don't know how big that conference was, but Unity was still an infant in these days. You can go online and look up a list of every game made in Unity, to Wikipedia's knowledge, I guess. But I don't see much
Right.
in between Goo Ball and like 2008, essentially.
Oh, well, maybe they were just
was
hard at work at that
I
point.
think it was just a bunch of web games that nobody like cataloged or put on Wikipedia.
Sure, yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah.
Checks out.
But their biggest boon would come in 2008, like I said. On July 10th, 2008, Apple announced and launched the App Store for iOS.
Wow, since 08, huh?
Yeah. And shortly after, on October
I
22nd,
didn't have a
2008,
smartphone until like years after that. So.
Google launched the Android market a
Mm.
couple months later. Being the Apple fans that they were, they very quickly added iOS support as being a
Now this was the era of when you bought games that was like only on that device, right? Or did they carry it?
Well, what do you mean, as opposed to what?
As opposed to, now if you like upgrade your phone and all your shit.
Oh,
Cars
I
are-
don't.
I didn't know if
that
there was
for a
an-
fact.
I was gonna say maybe they were forward thinking, had a count system in 08.
I don't think
Oh,
I
yeah,
bought
yeah.
a phone app until years later. But
Same here.
I
That's
think,
why I was.
No, they
thinking-
did.
Yeah, everything carried
the
forward,
way
right?
the only problem they had with that was when the iPad came out, they had separate versions for everything.
Yes.
But then they eventually
Alright.
merged those together.
I was just wondering when like that became an expected thing.
I
rather
don't
than
know.
A feature. Yeah. It's a different
Um,
conversation. Sorry.
But yeah, they added iOS to the list of supported platforms for Unity. And the engine very quickly picked up steam as the App Store picked up steam.
Picked up Steam.
No. Because there was a newly burgeoning iOS development community, which a lot of people were using Unity and evangelizing it to other people in the community, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
very quickly picked up steam.
They're on Steam.
It should also
You said you haven't hosted an episode in a while. I just thought I would make it awful for you.
You done? The company also required an additional $1,500 fee to publish games on iOS. You had to buy the license. It didn't come with the rest of your
$15 fee.
1,500,
Oh,
not
I
15.
misheard.
Yeah,
That's
you
cheap.
misheard a lot.
Hey.
Also, no, I just meant you misheard a lot of money, not
Oh.
that you mishear all the time. You were off by about $1,485. Also, this was also around the point where web-based games were,
Kind of falling out of favor.
but like companies were getting in on it.
Congregate.
Yeah, stuff like that. So two very important companies.
By the way, sorry, this might be a separate, like, sort of discussion or conversation here, but weren't most like mobile, like I guess it's like my memory of mobile games from that time period where like everything was Java. Like, I wonder when.
No,
This was.
you're thinking about the mid 2000s. Most like the Motorola Razr and the LG Chocolate and shit, they all ran on Java. Which, you know what else
Oh.
runs on Java? Android.
It's like its own fork of Java.
It is.
Yeah.
But that was pre-Android phone mobile OS.
Okay.
Two very big companies decided to get in on Unity to make games for the web, which actually did really well. You'll be surprised to know.
Mm.
In 2009, a web-based MMO made by Cartoon Network.
Oh, is this Toontown?
No,
No,
that was Disney.
Damn it.
Called Fusion Fall launched. That was made on Unity.
That's not a very, like, fun name that invokes the whimsy of Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
If you ask me.
The-
Fusion Fall sounds like it could be a first-person shooter.
That's
like
because
a
you're
sci-fi
thinking of Firefall, which was a first-person shooter.
So is Titanfall.
Yeah, there you
Also,
go.
Fusion isn't necessarily like a... Like, we...
It's a bad
That's not
name.
true.
You're right. For a
It's-
Cartoon Network game, you're
Thank
right.
you.
It's a bad
That's
name.
what I was, that's what I was getting
Also,
at.
don't say that the word fusion doesn't have any whimsy, or I'll make you sit down and play Fusion Frenzy again.
Okay,
Don't
I was thinking
threaten people on this
yeah.
podcast.
I was
That's
thinking of
fine.
Metroid Fusion
Yeah.
Frenzy.
Another company you may have heard of called EA,
Never. No,
Who?
I haven't.
Electronic Arts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
them.
people who bought Criterion from Canon. Yeah,
yeah,
of course, yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
They launched a game called Tiger Woods PGA Tour Online in 2010, which was also built in Unity. This was pre-Frostbite
News
days.
to me.
Also, Frostbite can't run on web browsers.
Yet.
Next Battlefield's gonna be something.
And we finally, after all of that, come to 2009, and what I think is the most important change that Unity has ever made to contribute to their success. The $200 Unity Indie license was changed to just Unity, and it was made free.
Yes,
Here's a quote.
that
from,
was. Sorry, I was. It's funny that you bring that up because in the intro, that was the big point I was gonna make, was that it was free, and then I did light research and I was like, oh wait, this wasn't all I didn't
Yeah.
really know of the Unity engine until it was free.
Yeah,
so
most
it's like
people didn't.
Yeah.
and that's why I'm saying it's like their best decision.
yeah,
was
I didn't
that.
realize that there was a
And,
different.
and
But also at this time,
Business
did they
structure
have
before.
the Unity marketplace where because
not yet.
okay,
Not yet.
I figured so they were going to
getting
make
there.
up that free license on the back end somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, here's a
no,
quote.
that's a big fucking deal.
Here's a quote from David Helgeson, CEO, who said, "The thinking was that Unity Indie was not generating a significant portion of our revenue. Most of the licenses were pro. So we figured, let's just take Indie away and give it to everyone for free. What's important at this point was to get Unity into the hands of as many people as possible." Which I agree with.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Flash forward to my introduction to Unity.
Oh,
Oh.
I'm curious about this because I was gonna ask. I was gonna wanted to propose the question of what everyone's first game that they can remember playing that was Unity.
Well,
Oh,
you're
no,
talking about
I'm
introduction
talking
to
about
developing.
development, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
But we can get to that after
Okay.
I say this. In
Sorry.
September 27th, 2010, Unity launched Unity 3, which added Android support for that same $1,500 fee, and a bunch of other dev stuff that I won't bore you with. Bunch more streaming tech and lighting engines and terrain tools and
I'm sleeping already.
a tree maker, I think.
Speed tree?
Not Speed Tree, but something similar to Speed Tree.
Maybe they have Speed Page that'll very quickly generate Elliot Page. There's Last of Us and what was that?
Beyond.
Beyond, yeah.
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 And also in 2010, shortly after Unity's 3.0 launch, the Unity Asset Store launched, which is what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So basically, this is an online marketplace for people to make whatever they wanted and sell it to each other. You could build models of castles. You could write songs. You could write code snippets, and then just put them up there for like 99 cents and sell them to other people.
Would I be
Or like $100,
Would I be jumping the gun to talk about the asset store here for a second?
No, go ahead. This is
Okay.
the part where I bring it up.
Yeah, so I mean, like, this is where the asset flip concept came from, which I don't know. I heard about that mostly from Jim Sterling. I don't know if there was another person who made that more popular or more well known. I
Asset
guess
flip?
an asset flip being somebody who just goes through the robust and expansive asset marketplace on the Unity store, finds assets to cobble together into something that technically counts as a game, and then sell it on Steam for like as cheap as possible to just like, yeah. So that was the thing. It was
I
like,
think I said they put it back in the same store.
No,
'Cause
no.
I had that thought even with Dreams.
No,
but-
because like let's think about it, right? It's like the whole reason why that whole asset marketplace exists is so that it's like, okay, well, I need a sword. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I just need my guy to hold a sword. Well, let me just go and see if somebody already made a good sword that fits like what I'm thinking of. Oh, look, there it is. It costs $15. I'll add it to my game, and I have the license. I know because I'm buying it from the Unity store.
Yeah,
I have the
it's
license.
legitimate.
I have the license to sell my game with this asset in it without running into legal issues because that's already been pre-cleared. So
Yeah.
so that became a great way to sell not only assets but also just like code extensions or tools that help you develop, that aren't maybe part of Unity itself because they didn't think about it or maybe they didn't, prioritize it or whatever. But so all these things became very popular, and then there was just this
So wait, can anybody upload stuff to Unity's store, or do they need to?
I think so, as long as you have the legal right. I'm sure they do some cleaning of that.
Oh, yeah.
They must do some policing of that because when the real
And now just Steam, I guess, is the second.
So Steam does as well, but that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm getting at, is that these asset flips were all good and legal, but all they did was they littered the store with crap for a while, right? So like Steam definitely had that
Okay.
reputation for a while of, there's just so much garbage releasing on it every day or whatever. There's like this many releases and they're all crap.
Presumably, if you were spending all this time doing 3D modeling, you would probably upload them to both stores.
No, he's talking
No.
about games.
Yeah. So
Oh.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. It's
Sorry,
like,
that was on a larger
no, yeah, it is.
skill that I was.
It is your legal right.
picturing it.
It is your legal right to buy assets from the Unity Asset Store,
Correct.
make it into something that is technically a video game, and then sell that video game on Steam. So there was a certain
Minimal work for maximum.
Exactly. So, but
Yeah.
that littered Steam with crap until those companies trying to make a living that way just eventually, couldn't sustain themselves. Most of them went out of business. I'm sure there are a couple that still survived because their competitors went out of business. But it's really just like so. You
The
can
dog eat dog.
you
world.
you can chart where where the number of games released on Steam went up and then it went back to like pre those levels. But it's like this was
solved itself.
yeah, so it's like this was a side effect of the Unity Asset Store, but also one of the great things about Unity is that so many other people have been using it for so long that this asset store is so robust.
Okay.
So you've got access
That's
to all these
cool.
things that you can always throw into your game.
so
And also into 3D like animation. I watched a guy who does there was like a contest to like make a 3D animated short in 48 hours or something. And I watched like
stuff.
3 videos of people making their shorts, and it was all just like, so I'm gonna go on the Unity Asset Store and I'm gonna download this knight and I'm gonna download this castle. Yeah, because it's like I don't have the time to fucking model anything.
See,
it's only 48 hours.
I was imagining something much more nefarious where I thought you were hinting at like the people were basically grabbing assets and then then just selling them as modded content for other games.
No,
and-
but that was what happened when Steam had paid mods for
Yeah.
like
yes,
48
and then
hours.
we covered that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, we
as
did
well.
also cover that.
No, but no, they were doing it all good and legal. It was just it created garbage for a little while.
it
Yeah.
was-
Yeah.
it just ended
Yeah.
up in a shoddy product is all.
So I could go on and on and on talking about Unity 4.0 and Unity 5.0.
What are they up to now?
Oh, I'll get there.
Okay.
Very quickly, probably.
I'm just gonna go down a list of hits.
Ooh.
Okay.
Well, wait. Before you do that, should I?
You want to ask your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So, because I remember mine.
Okay.
But I was gonna ask first, you guys, what was the first thing that you remember playing and that was like
Austin,
Made in
statistically
Unity?
amazing? Yeah.
should you and I answer this one later?
No, I can answer
Why
it
is it?
now.
Is it the same?
No.
Oh.
But actually, wait, did I have an answer for you? Did you ask me this before?
Think so?
Okay, do you remember my answer?
No.
Because I was probably looking at Wikipedia when I answered it.
Okay.
And by the way, don't do this.
All right. The only reason I remember mine because it was a game that left an impact on me, and
I know what your answer
yeah,
is.
and it also has a distinctive feel to it that I have felt again in terms of first person control.
Yeah.
Um,
So I would think mine is probably Temple Run for the iPhone.
was Temple Run Unity?
Yes.
Okay. When did
Yeah.
that come out?
2010, I want to
Okay,
say.
so that's going back 3 years from mine.
Yeah, you want to pull up the list, Andrew, and see
Yeah,
if you
I'm
can
pulling
find
it up.
yours?
Yeah.
So mine was Gone Home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which was 2013, I
Yes.
believe. Incredible game, and it's I don't remember because it released on PC in 2013, and then Fulbright I think over the years put out like the console editions and stuff.
Yeah.
But there might have been a splash screen, there might not have been.
So funny you should bring that up.
Yeah.
Once Andrew answers your question, I'll get to why that happened to Fulbright.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I want to know.
the oldest Unity game on this list that I played was Kerbal Space Program, I think.
Kerbal Space Program's on Unity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I'm a little surprised at that one.
I didn't play that one until way after release. So
yeah, that was mine too, because Temple Run was after Kerbal, but I didn't play Kerbal at launch.
I think
when
I think
did-
my actual answer is Thomas Was Alone.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, Thomas was alone. Okay. When did Kerbal come out?
2011.
That was early access.
That was
Right. I
early
was gonna say
access, yeah.
the full version was probably.
Much later.
It
Yeah.
just stayed in early access for a long time. It was
Yeah.
one of the first early access games and released after so many others. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a complicated game.
it's a complicated
yeah.
game. It's a great game. But it was there for a while.
No, Kerbal's rad. Yeah.
Okay. So,
I'm too dumb for it, but I got nothing bad to say about it.
so let me go down my list of hits.
Yeah.
And then you'll see if you can figure out why Fulbright didn't exactly put it on everything.
Okay.
So Unity 4.0 launches in 2013
Mhm.
with support for DirectX 11, Adobe Flash, weirdly enough, and Linux. So
Which coincides with when Valve started supporting Linux, and it was also about 2 years after Humble Bundle was a thing.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
one of Humble Bundle's things that they did was that every game was DRM free and ran on Windows, Mac, and Linux.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was starting
Does-
to gain traction right around that time.
Does Twitch.io do that as well?
itch.io.
itch.io. Sorry.
They don't. I mean, they sell Mac and Linux games, but they don't require it. You know.
no,
It's-
you can put itch.io is like a pay what you want model, so
Yes,
you can put
yeah.
like stuff that's not done on there, like demos. Yeah, so
Yeah, but Unity was basically we're adding Linux support exactly when Valve is doing it too. So hey, floodgates.
which
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
lines
Yeah.
up, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So later in 2013, after Unity 4.0 comes out, Xbox 360 and Xbox One support are added to Unity. Later on in 2014,
No many 360 games because that would have been pretty close
Yeah,
to
that
the
would've
end
been
of its life cycle.
in 2014, a year later, PlayStation 4 support was added to Unity.
It's a bigger deal in that year.
And we and Andrew were talking about this when we were discussing the script. In 2015, a very important step, Unity 5 came out, which added real-time global illumination and a new cinematic engine to improve visuals. Because there is a distinct, Andrew was talking about this with me, there is a distinct jump in visual quality of like the base lighting engine from 4 to 5.
You guys know I was way into RoboCraft for a while, right?
Yeah.
I knew
And
that was Unity.
RoboCraft was on Unity 4 when I first started playing
Oh,
it.
did they convert it to?
They did,
Five?
yeah. So like at first it was Unity 4, and it did not look good, right? Like it was not a good looking game. The skybox was a visible box. You could literally see the creases on the box. And when they updated it to 5, like they got a lot more lighting, bells and whistles, and that game looked a whole lot better after that.
Something else I do want to ask. Around what time was the end? Did they sort of pivot into, like, basically allowing 2D stuff to be built within? Like
That was Unity 4.
That was Unity 4.
So I'll talk about this. So
Yeah.
my first game that I ever made in Unity was 2D.
Was it on 4 or was it on 5?
It was on 3.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
here's the
You
thing.
were messing with the stuff a while ago then.
Here's the thing, because Andrew was talking about the asset store stuff. When I said you can upload code snippets
Mm-hmm.
to Unity, there were a lot. The Unity people themselves, it was originally called Unity 3D. It was supposed to be for 3D games. And I get the forward thinking there of being like, 2D's fucking dead, dude. In like 2002, right? But like 2D made a fucking huge resurgence,
Yes.
right? So like,
I don't mean to do an actually, but there was an interview I listened to a long time ago. I don't have a link to it. I couldn't tell you where I heard it before, but it was one of the guys who founded Unity. And I believe he was describing that the URL was Unity 3D because they could not get just unity.com.
Oh,
or whatever.
really?
But he made it very clear. He's like, the URL is Unity 3D, but we are just called Unity.
okay, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
but they were
But
prioritizing 3D,
Yeah.
and then once
Yes.
Yep.
the indie scene exploded.
There was a bunch of code packages on the Unity Asset Store, and a lot of them were free, to basically make a 2D game. And the funny thing about Unity is that you are essentially still making a 3D game. Unity, it's just a bunch of planes floating in 3D space with a camera pointed at it. That's what a 2D game
Right.
made in Unity actually is. Yeah, like it's a workaround. It's a 3D engine.
It's
Kinda-
it's literally the way
though.
the way
Yeah.
Disney filmed
I
their
was about
cartoons. With just
that's
just an
literally
orthogonal
what
camera.
I visualized
Yeah.
in my mind.
which we did that. You know what parallax scrolling is?
You did explain that to me once before.
Yeah, so it's
but-
like the backgrounds move at different
Yes.
speeds, so it gives it some depth.
yeah,
We did that where it was like a skybox, and it would spawn
yeah.
and move
Like
past.
I know.
but you literally filmed it at different, like away from the camera,
Yes.
and then they would all move at
I
different.
know, like
speeds.
Ori does that.
Yes,
and
yeah.
and like
A lot of
inside and
2D
stuff.
games do that.
Which
I
is
mean,
funny 'cause-
Mario 1 does that.
they were doing that back on the NES and
Oh,
the
yeah,
Yeah,
I guess
yeah,
that's
whatever,
true.
yeah.
I guess I'm thinking of more modern examples because it's very clear when you see it now. That's opposed to
Yeah. Okay. So, 2015 was Unity 5. 2017, we get support for the Nintendo Switch,
Makes
as well
sense.
as
That's when it came out.
the Vulkan API, and a bunch of VR shit.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of Oculus shit. And
They were-
Vive shit.
They were right. They were
right at the forefront.
They were
of that
right
shit.
there at the
Mhm.
right time, which is why most VR games, especially around the launch of
Yes,
the Vive and
VR
that
is
first
very big for Unity.
that first Oculus was like that was all Unity stuff
Yeah.
because they just had the tools ready and nobody
Yeah.
else did.
They're
That's smart.
they're pretty quick with this shit,
Mhm.
which is another key to their success, I think.
Mhm.
But yeah, to go back to your example of Gone Home, the reason that Gone Home came out on PC in 2012,
It's 20
and then
I think it's 2013.
I think it was 2013.
2013,
Yeah.
sorry, and then it came to consoles later because they
Yes.
didn't have console support when Gone Home was made. So
Oh,
that's why it came to PlayStation later, and that's why it came to the Switch much
Gotcha.
later, because that was when Unity added support for those platforms. They basically, when
sense.
Unity adds support for a platform, they put Gone Home on it.
Then you know what else they had to do? In reference to a bunch of old episodes? Then they had to send it in to get rated,
That's true.
which
Yeah.
they didn't need to do on Steam.
So shortly after that Nintendo Switch report was added, or maybe the same time, the timelines are a little tricky, Unity ditched numbers, like I said, and now it's just Unity 2017, Unity 2018,
Oh, they're doing the
2019.
yearly-
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We're no longer at Unity 5. They're not competing with Unreal in that space. They just do it yearly and
Okay.
add shit all the time. Because I think they realize, like, if we have a lighting engine ready, why wait for Unity 6? Just put it out, you know?
Mhm.
Or a lighting engine update, I should say. But a big change, and this is our last huge change for Unity, came in the form of a new competitor, and we're going to jump back in time a little bit. So
Ooh.
Unity's early success, it was probably attributed, like we said at the very beginning, to the domination of Unreal 3 in the AAA space. Because Unreal 3 was very expensive to license. And that was kind of where Unity slipped in under the radar.
Yeah.
And so we jump from the early 360 era all the way up to 2014 when we're finally ready to launch Unreal 4. And guess what? Unity's gone unchecked for a little too long over here. They're gaining a little bit too much market share out from under Epic. So
and all of Epic's usual clientele have been purchased by big publishers where they're using their in-house engine
Yes.
like Frostbite.
Yep.
EA and Ubisoft are probably like the best examples of just like only using their shit.
I mean,
Mhm.
everybody, like basically everyone at that size had an engine like that, just about, you know?
Yeah, it's
like,
true.
Yeah, so they were all using their own internal stuff, and because they were all just
It's more cost
consolidating,
efficient.
they were all consolidating, so the mid-size guys didn't exist anymore to license Unreal, you know?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. So yeah,
Right.
Epic saw a competitor rising and thought they might be leaving some money on the table in this new indie space. At the same time, actually a year earlier in 2013, one of Unity's main complaints from people was like, Unity is free, but if we want the full experience, $1,500, like, come on, dude, that's more than like Photoshop. That's a lot of money. Like,
Yeah.
so they switched. Unity Pro went from, you can still pay $1,500 for it, but they
If you want.
introduced a subscription model. Basically,
Oh.
you sign a contract, and it's $75 a month with like a 2-year commitment, essentially like a cell phone plan. You get
Yeah.
Unity Pro up front, and then you pay it as time goes.
And if you have a team where everyone needs access to.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Unreal 4 was released to certain people and students in universities in 2014 and to the general public in 2015. The new engine was to be made free for all, and instead of paying any costs up
I
front,
remember this.
if you make a game in Unreal 4, all you have to do is sign a contract, terms of service, whatever, to give
It's not a
Epic,
profit sharing thing, is it?
Yeah, 5% cut on all revenue made
That's what
from
it
any game in Unreal Engine 4.
Yeah, but it's also after a certain threshold too. So if,
Yes.
if you're barely selling anything, they don't take anything after
I
like
think
the
it's
first.
Exactly.
30,000?
I thought it was the first $10,000 in a quarter. So if you make $9,000 in a quarter, 4 times a year,
So oddly.
then they don't take any of it.
specific. Okay.
But I don't know. There was a lawyer who laid this out, and it could have changed since I've seen that video because I was doing some my own side
Reconnaissance.
projects. And I was doing
Yeah, I
side
know.
projects in Unreal for a little while.
Yeah,
And I was curious and all that stuff. So and that's how it used to work. But it could have changed. They could have raised the threshold or
No,
whatever.
that's fascinating. The only reason I sounded reluctant is because I wasn't sure if that was the right answer. But
Yeah.
I
5%
Yep.
of profits.
in the grand scheme of things, it's not.
No. This allowed indie developers and amateurs access to the engine at no cost.
Yeah.
Again, if they are under the threshold, and if you're over the threshold, you're just giving up a cut of your profits. Anyway, this cut into Unity's market a little bit as use of Unreal Engine 4 as opposed to Unreal Engine 3 jumped tenfold with the launch of 4.
Yeah.
Because
I remember,
mean,
that
less-
that was the rivalry for a few
yeah,
years. was-
maybe I don't know how many products Unreal 3 versus Unreal 4 ended up at the end of the market, but a lot of people are using this engine, to make fan projects or whatever. So yeah, Unity's response to this, and here's where the splash screen thing comes in.
It says "fuck you, Epic" real small at the bottom.
Yeah. Unity's
That's just
response.
implied.
Yeah.
Unity's response to this was, one would think to do a similar profit-sharing model or something like that. No, we're sticking with subscriptions. We're
Okay.
sticking with the licensing fees.
Staying them by their guns.
Yeah. I forgot to mention earlier, but I'll get there now. It was still Unity by itself was still free, and Pro was still $75 a month, but they added an in between. They realized for whatever reason that there must have been people out there who were making just above $100,000 a month, and we're like, hey, $1,500 a year is still like not great, man, and, or whatever. So they added a Unity Plus, which costs $35 a month and was made to fill the gap between hobbyists who are using it for free to make web games and pros who were using it to make.
I didn't know they had this many tiers.
Yeah, they also, I don't think this is in my script, and I don't have all the information on it, but they also have Unity Enterprise. If you're like a huge studio
Okay.
with like 10 plus employees and you're making millions of dollars, it's like a discount from pro as well. I don't know how that works. I didn't look too much into it, but this, also, the license to develop on all platforms was dropped. So that $1,500 to make games for iOS and that $1,500 to make games for Android, that's now included in the subscription price. This led to a bit of a ire within the community. A lot of people were very angry because they threw together this subscription model, like I said, now $75 a month, but it's no longer like it's like this, it's an ongoing subscription, right? And then you just get these yearly updates like Adobe does. And people kind of realize, they're like, we did the math and you're charging us more money than when we just paid $1,500.
All at once.
Yeah. In addition, you have a lot of people who are like,
It seems like a poor tax kind of situation, right?
I'm making games for the Xbox One exclusively, or I'm making games just to put them on Steam. And my costs have now gone up, and your like little toss to me is like, hey, but now you can develop for iOS, and that's included. And it's like, I don't want to develop for iOS. I want to develop for PC.
Or maybe your project wouldn't even, like, it wouldn't be possible.
Yeah.
You know, like, depending on how intensive it is, like, graphically, or how it needs to control or something.
Yeah. So this is where the splash screen thing gets a little tricky, because originally their Plus subscription had like weird rules where it's like, okay, if you're making $100,000, you can use the free one. But if you're making $200,000, you can use Plus. But anything above $200,000, you have to get Pro. Right? And it's like, if you have Pro, you can take out this Unity splash screen we put at the beginning. If you make something for free, you have to leave that Unity splash screen in. But if you have Plus, you can maybe take it out, but then later they like added it back in, and then people got mad and they took it out.
My head.
Yeah. Basically, they fucked around with this Plus subscription quite a few times because people weren't happy with it, and
They were just trying to
find that middle ground where people would still pay it but not be pissed at them. Essentially,
it's what everybody's trying to figure out all the time.
But so, I mean, if we think about that for a second, right? Randy, you would say you probably don't have a very high opinion of the Unity engine, right?
Okay, so to elaborate on that very quickly, I don't don't like the feel of 3D games in Unity.
So let me put it
so
this way.
nobody can pull the Cuphead card on me.
No,
because I know that game's fucking amazing and somehow made in Unity. But it's 2D.
So let me put it this way, right? If you are more likely, like, which game do you think you are more likely to see a Unity logo on? One where they don't have to show it because they paid more money because their game makes more money, or one where you do have to see it because they couldn't afford to pay more money because their game doesn't make more money?
So, like, your opinion of Unity, if you'll allow me to take this, your opinion of Unity is sort of tarnished because all of the games like Kerbal, when you're like, I'm surprised, that's because they paid enough money to take the Unity logo out. But the Unity logo is left in all the games where there maybe wasn't as big a budget.
Yeah. No. So you're not wrong, but it's more though that it's like there are good 3D games made in Unity, as I said earlier with Gone Home, or even something like Super Hot, which is probably the most in my opinion, the best use of a first-person game in Unity.
Yeah.
But I still think, by and large, these games are good despite the engine they're running on. Sometimes at least things like Firewatch, right, where it's like it's story based. It doesn't feel great, but it doesn't matter because that's not the point.
All right, walk with me on a brief walk here, Randy. Okay, marketing works. Correct, right? Like somebody advertises something, you become more familiar with a brand, and it sticks in your mind. And
I'm staring at my beer for reference.
yeah,
if
okay,
it's-
yeah, great. Yeah, make sure it's labeled a camera. No, but so it's like if the thing that you are associating the brand with more is the ones where you see the logo on it, right? The ones
Uh-huh.
where you're not surprised that it's running in it because you already know when you booted the game up that it runs on it. But
Right,
those
but
those games are going to be, on average, the lower tier games. That association that forms in your mind is, oh, Unity, bad game.
No, I don't think you could use that on me though, because if I'm every game that I play, I want to know more about it. Who made it, who published it, and all like these details. And it's like, so I would be like encouraged to kind of self-educate and research that stuff anyway. But I do think that by and large, then yeah, that does that would apply to
Yeah.
to most people. And that
So-
if the first game they played on Unity was Slender the 8 Pages and it popped up with that stupid screen, you'd be like, well, this looks like ass and runs like ass and controls like ass, and then
And
like
started with a Unity
yeah,
logo.
and it started with a Unity logo. So if you saw that again, even years later, when you're going to play fucking like Beat Saber or something in VR, you'd be like, oh, Unity, I don't know. So it's just like it's like that kind of thing.
And my defense to this, and we've talked about this before, but we'll air out our grievances on the podcast. So basically, I agree with you, but part of the thing that Unity provides and that engines like Unreal, so they have like a default third person or first person controller that you can just drag and drop in.
Yeah,
That's the thing you don't like the feel of. Right?
you're right.
And that those softer rigid body physics that the built-in colliders and stuff,
Yeah.
the physics of Unity, that's the kind of stuff that you might not like.
Yes.
But it's there so that people can just pick it up and use it, because if not, it would be too complicated.
And you are not married to any of those things
Yeah.
when you use Unity as well.
I think it's just like I can't think of a time where like I played a first person game in Unity and I was just like, oh, this feels great. You know, like unless you guys can.
Okay,
like,
so hold on.
Like I think Jazzpunk fucking rules. It's probably
So-
the funniest game ever made. It doesn't need to feel great. Like it's
Yeah.
not like, that's not
So me and Andrew
they're going
have
for.
it's funny you say that, because me and Andrew have prepared a little game.
the ooh.
A year in the making.
A year in the making. Yes, we
Okay.
started this at the beginning of quarantine, actually. So
And just for reference, I'll do one of these.
Okay.
okay.
Close my laptop.
All
I'll
right.
Put my phone down here.
Okay. So we're going to give you a list of, what is it, like 25 games, I think?
Yeah.
Holy shit! Have we
Uh,
named some already?
Yes.
Okay.
But not many. So this is multiple choice. Okay? You are going to tell
Multiple-
I'm going to
Holy shit!
I am going to read off the name of a game, and you are
Okay.
going to tell me whether it's Unity, Unreal Engine, or neither.
Oh, God!
Okay.
I'm either gonna look like a genius or the biggest idiot. So,
The goal of this game is to surprise you like we did with Kerbal, essentially.
Kerbal, I was surprised.
Yeah. Okay. So, the one we did mention, you already mentioned, first question, Cuphead,
Yes, that I knew.
All right. Well,
Unity.
But that's
yeah,
that,
the answer is Unity.
yeah. I mean, I said that earlier, but that's because one of the best games from that generation.
The other
Mm.
the other one that we mentioned,
And I looked because I will say when I played Cuphead, I wasn't like, oh, this is Unity. It was one of those things I was like, I want to know everything about the production of this game because it's so like thoughtful and
yeah.
and like meticulous with how it's crafted. And that was when I did that, I was like, oh shit,
Yes.
Unity.
So we have
And it feels great.
the second one that you already brought up, and these are the easy ones are at the beginning.
Okay.
So
Oh, cool. It's
Ori
Scales.
and the Blind Forest.
That was Unity as well.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. See, all the people that are using the engine for 2D know how to make it flow and
Number
feel
3,
good.
Bloodstained.
Oh, Bloodstained. I didn't play it, but I watched some people play it. I'm gonna say no.
Well, there's 3 answers.
Oh
so-
yeah,
There's 3 answers: Unity, Unreal, or neither.
I'm gonna say Unreal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up,
All right, I'm 3 for 3.
Baba Is You.
No, neither.
Correct.
Yes. What was them? Is that like a game maker?
Multimedia Fusion 2 is the
Okay.
name of the engine.
Yeah, we do have the list of engines used in the neithers.
Yes, yes, we do. Number 5 you'll probably get. Tetris Effect.
Oh, that's Unreal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 6, Limbo.
Oh, Limbo is Unity. No, Inside's Unity. I don't know if Limbo is. I'm going to say Unreal.
Neither.
Damn it.
Custom engine.
Okay.
It was before both of those engines were made available
Well,
to
yeah, when
developers.
Okay. Well, Limbo
'Cause
came
that
out
was
in like 2011 or
2011-ish,
something.
yeah.
Shit.
Um,
But I am right. I know Inside it was they.
that's my next question.
Okay.
Inside
Inside is Unity.
Unity.
Which it's funny because those games are kind of like sort of floaty in a way that
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
They're both kind of floaty in the same way.
They are, even though I guess they're two different engines. But
Next up, Observation.
great games. But Observation. That's the no code or
Yeah.
what was the
The Stories Untold people. The space one.
fuck Unreal.
Unity.
Damn.
Yep.
Because here's the thing, Stories Untold I know is Unity.
Yeah.
There's something about the like you see the little white dot there and
Yeah.
just the way like the speed and which the turning and the movement
Mhm.
is, but there's like Observation as you're floating around in space.
Mhm.
So like you don't actually walk normally through that whole game. So I just
All right. Next up,
I was wrong there.
Travis Strikes Again. No More Heroes.
That's Unreal because there's an Unreal shirt in the game that you can
Yep.
buy from the store. That game also sucks.
Yes, it does.
And I will say that Observation might be the best feeling 3D. Well, no, you don't actually control the character directly. You're jumping around with all the cameras.
You do walk at some point.
You do,
Yeah.
but
But
that game looks sharp.
we specifically added Travis Strikes Again to show you that Unreal Engine 4 games can also look like shit.
Well, that's of course, PUBG's on Unreal 4.
Next up, It Takes Two.
Ooh, Unreal.
Unreal.
Yeah, there's no, there's no way. Great game.
Next up, Genshin Impact.
Also, hold on. Before I answer this, I can't think of another Unity game that has that 3D Unity game that does split screen.
It's possible. I've made split screen games in Unity before.
Yeah, well, then you can do more than I think most people can. Just the because I guess I should say just people aren't prioritizing it anymore, sadly. But Genshin Impact. Okay, Genshin Impact's on mobile, so I'm gonna say Unity.
Correct.
But also, Fortnite is on mobile, dude.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
Unreal Engine 4 does
Fine.
also work
That's
on
not a good
mobile.
metric, but I still got it right.
You did. Okay, next up, Shenmue 3.
Shenmue 3. I mean, that's pretty janky. I'm gonna say Unreal.
Unreal.
Doing good.
Next up,
There's a specific kind of jank with each of these that I think I have an eye for.
GTFO.
That's Unity, which I only know because it was like the controller support at launch was very bad, and I was like, and once they sort of patched it in later, it didn't. There wasn't a lot of like weight. I like that game. I think
Yeah.
it's doing a lot of really like smart and inventive things under the hood, but I think like raw mechanics of how it plays as a shooter are kind of stiff.
Mm-hmm.
Great lighting though, which I wouldn't normally associate with Unity.
Yeah. Next up, Recore.
Ooh. Recore. I don't know. I'm gonna take a 50-50 shot and say Unity.
Correct.
And actually, you had a 1 in 3 shot. I
Oh
mean, there's
right.
still
Sorry, I
other-
keep forgetting that. That's the third
Mhm.
option.
Next up, Minecraft Dungeons.
I'm gonna say neither.
Okay.
And the only reason is because it's Minecraft and the power of Microsoft backing them. I feel like they would be more inclined to.
This is your first one incorrect.
No, he had at least one other one that was incorrect,
I
right?
fucked up observation.
Yeah.
Oh, you did fuck up Observation. That's right.
Damn it.
Okay.
And also, Microsoft makes Gears, and that's on Unreal.
Unreal Engine 4.
Yeah.
Next up, League of Legends Wild Rift, which is the console,
hell is that?
the console and mobile version that they just came out with.
What? What were the last two? I'm gonna start scantroning my way through the rest.
No,
of
I specifically said we need to stop making any kind of patterns.
Yep.
We went
There's
through
no
it.
pattern. I made
Fuck.
that
We went-
specific.
We went through it and got rid of patterns.
Unreal.
Unity.
Damn it.
Next up, Valorant.
Unreal.
Correct.
Yeah, that's got to be 4.
Outer Wilds.
Unity.
Okay.
It doesn't control good.
Outer Worlds.
That controls better.
Does.
And I didn't confuse the two of those games this time.
Nope.
Boy. Neither.
Unity UE4.
You even put the neither option in there.
Ew.
I feel like
Some of them aren't.
I feel like I would have gotten the other two right.
Next up, The Witness.
Unreal.
Neither. Custom engine written by Jonathan Blow himself.
Yep.
I guess I should have
And his
suspected that.
Brand new language.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, that's so obvious now that you say it.
Mm-hmm. Next up, City Skylines.
That's Unity.
Mm-hmm.
I played that. That for fucking some crazy reason you think that game is worse than SimCity 2013.
It is. Next up, State of Decay 2.
Unreal.
Unreal.
Yeah.
State of
I
Decay.
played that as well.
State of Decay 1.
On a different engine?
Could be Unreal.
Okay, hold on. Bear with me here. Rust is made in Unity. And I feel like State of Decay 1 felt a little rusty. No pun intended. So I'm going to say that State of Decay 1 is Unity.
Incorrect. CryEngine.
CryEngine! Fuck! You gonna tell me you're gonna ask Sonic Boom next, you asshole?
Sonic Boom. No, just kidding.
I know that's CryEngine.
It is. A heavily modified CryEngine so that it could run on the Wii U. Because it did not support the Wii
Good
U.
idea.
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
That has to be its own, right? Sure as fuck ain't fucking Unity. I know that much. But I don't know if it's Unreal. Nothing in Unity could ever look that good. But I'm gonna say it's the third one. It's its own.
Incorrect. Unreal Engine.
Damn it.
Final Fantasy 15.
Final Fantasy 15 would run on a different engine than 7, or you just did it to trick me.
4-dimensional chess.
Yeah. Fine, I'll play your game, sir. Unreal.
Wrong. The Luminous Engine.
That's why. So why did they just stick with the Luminous engine again?
Because they spent all that money and the engine wasn't as good as Unreal at doing the same things.
I guess.
Also, Final Fantasy VII Remake is built on the code base of Kingdom Hearts, which was in Unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same director.
Kingdom Hearts 3. Yep.
I still think I'm good at sussing out the Unity ones, though. Of the one, because I've only technically gotten one wrong in that
Mhm.
sense.
Was that the end of the game, or how many do we have left?
That's the end.
Okay.
Damn it.
So like the goal here too is that like even the ones that you got
I
wrong.
wanted a better shot at redemption.
No, but like even the ones that you got wrong between Other and Unreal is not because Unity is worse at these things. It's like it's just inherently not. You can make any of these engines do just about anything. Resident
course.
Evil 7 could be built in Unreal, or in Unity. I mean, there's actually nothing stopping it. Like the whole like when
Maybe
you say hold on,
technically.
no,
all
no,
right, sorry.
let me just stop you here. When you say I like that engine for
I
the
love
R-
that. I love that
for the
engine,
RE
yeah.
engine, it doesn't really make any sense from your perspective to say that, because all you're really saying is the things that engine does quickly, that they're able to do most commonly, are things that you value, things that you like. But it
The
doesn't.
way things animate or the way
But
they're lit
the
or
way-
the way that they
The way
move and
things
flow
the
and
way
feel.
things animate and the way that they move and feel has nothing to do with the engine. You could make that work in any engine. You can make Super Smash Bros. Melee in Unity, and I know that because I work on Rushdown Revolt, and that is a Unity game. And all you're doing, like when you're talking about the feel of movement, it's how quickly do you accelerate? When you get to your max speed, is there camera bob?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
There are all kinds of other things
Well,
that
then-
affect the feel, and you are putting that all together as one thing. And like Austin said, there is a default like first person template. And
Yeah.
maybe your game like Gone Home doesn't really need to mess with the movement at all because you really just need to open doors and read notes. So it's like there's no real need to reinvent the wheel there, so it doesn't matter how the movement feels. And if you really cared about that movement feel, you could make everything like you could make your first person shooter feel exactly like Halo. There's nothing stopping you. You just have to observe what did Halo do to get that acceleration, that jump arc, whatever,
Right.
and implement it in Unity. There's nothing stopping
But
you.
you're right. I just think the grander question is then that it's like sometimes the engine tells a different story about what's prioritized, and maybe
think-
that's
The thing I said before is in terms of Unity's, what you see when you see like a Unity game, right? Is like the story there is less about like what are the developers prioritizing and more about like it was just a dude who had an idea and he needed the simplest way to execute on it. Because as somebody who has tried to work in both Unreal and Unity, I will give you that Unreal is fast tracks you a little bit to being more powerful. In that, I think Unreal has a much better lighting engine than Unity, even after the updates
Right.
Unity 5 introduced. But in terms of ease of use, in terms of like simplifying everything so that you can get from the shortest path from idea to execution, I think that's what Unity does so well.
right. But because that's the thing, it's like I think what Andrew was pointing out to me and I understand is that it's like playing favorites with engines really only applies to the development side of things because I'm sure one of them might lend itself better to how you work with it over another. But I think it's like with me, it's like Unity has in my brain grown to have this sort of distinct feel because of how many because of its accessibility, and it's Unreal less so, and that's most of the questions that I got wrong were tied to that because it's like a lot of the games you named that are working with Unreal weren't made by indies at all. So it's like the way that their like production pipeline and the way that games are presented and the way that they feel, it's like they're spending more time on that because they have the resources to, and also that's sort of like
You're not wrong.
a big thing that separates, like a larger studio from a small studio.
But a larger studio will sometimes use Unity. So like,
Right.
Valve used Unity to make the lab for VR because
Which is funny, but they didn't stick with it for Alex.
they didn't stick with it because their engine was not ready for VR. So it's like
Yeah.
they had to get something out to sell their VR stuff, like their demo basically. And they're like, hey, well, Unity's ready now, which is like what we were getting
Yeah.
at. It's like Unity was always there for the new platform when people needed it. And it's capable of some powerful visuals. That game still like the lab has
No, I played the lab.
yeah, it has great visual fidelity. Like it controls fine. Obviously, it's not really big
do
on
you think
3D movement.
Do you
but
think the lab might be like? I'm trying to think of probably what the most expensive game that used Unity ever was.
I don't know. Did we answer that question in our
No,
research?
but I can look it up.
And so it's like I understand like that there's a lot of
Genshin Impact might be up there.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Genshin Impact I think Genshin Impact makes a lot of money. I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, by continually working on it, they've definitely
He's
scaled
right.
it up for sure. But I mean, like there are big, indie games that come out all the time, like big indie games. But there are big games with bigger and bigger production value every year that are coming out on Unity, and the same is true for Unreal.
Yeah.
It took a long time for you to see the fruits of the labor that started in 2015 when Unreal went with the more public license.
Yeah.
There's actually one other point I wanted to give you about the difference and similarity between Unity and Unreal, and that's that if I said Unity is a black box, would you know what I meant by that? It's
I'm afraid not. No.
okay. So basically, Unity is a product that there are going to be parts of the code that you'll never be able to see. They have opened up more of it in response to Unreal, but the thing that Unreal does in addition to that very low code thing where you can just drag and drop that I was talking about, is they give you full access to the source code in the event that you need to modify anything. And Unity doesn't do that, and I think part of it is because they just want to be able to have the export all function not be tampered with, I guess,
Right.
and also some whatever proprietary, trade secrets they have as well. But that is a strength of Unreal that this is an engine limitation that you could say, oh, I recognize this about this engine, is that in Unreal 3, you'll recall that on that console generation, there were a lot of textures that popped in way late.
No,
right?
totally.
And
yeah.
like that was a problem that they had partially with the hardware being lower powered than it could have been to run those same games, but also just the way that it loaded in assets. So that is a thing that you could recognize happens in the engine if you had access to the source code. Like let's say you were NetherRealm or Irrational,
Yeah.
you could rewrite that part of the code to do what you needed it to do. Oh, and as for games made by bigger studios on Unity, like we had Hearthstone on our list before, and that was cut.
But Hearthstone, Magic Arena,
Yeah.
and Legends of Runeterra are all the Unity.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's like it is the quickest way to prototype that game, and then to polish it up from there is
Yeah.
lickety split.
And you're right in that, like, a Unity game doesn't inherently mean by by any like amount of imagination that it can't be a polished experience.
Mhm.
It's just that it's like, I think, to me, a dedicated game engine, like, for example, like the Fox engine, it feels so like this was meant for this purpose, and I think that does kind of like serve a role in how
Sure.
games are shaped into what they are.
I mean, that's
through every stage of production.
That's why Epic insisted on always making their own games alongside their engine, so
Yeah.
they could eat their own dog food, so to speak. And then,
Yeah.
and as they see what they need when they're building stuff, then they expand out the functionality of the
Yeah.
engine.
I mean, sure, Unreal does that too.
That's exactly what I was
Gears of-
saying. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Gears of War
Yeah, Gears
and
of War.
Fortnite.
Epic was always making their own game alongside it. There was another point I had to make about that, but now I've forgotten it.
Sorry.
And maybe it is easier for like
Oh, sorry, the
no,
Fox
you're
engine. Yeah, so the drawback to that is that let's say you're EA and you have Frostbite engine, which is technically capable of everything you need it to do, but then you decide, what if we made a fourth Mass Effect game that was bad? And then you've got this first-person shooter game that doesn't know how to do third-person stuff. So then when you hand it off to BioWare, they have to code their own third-person camera, which is different than a first-person camera in a few ways.
It absolutely
It's
is.
not that it could never be done in that engine, but when you have a tool like Unity or Unreal, it's meant to handle as many genres and common use cases as possible.
Right.
And when you have an engine like Frostbite that was only ever made for Battlefield, and you
Yeah.
have to do literally anything else, it's not going to be great at it,
Yeah.
So then you cause a lot of problems for your developers who need to use it because you were trying to save 5% on all your proceeds. You know what I mean?
So because that's the thing. It's like, sure, maybe there are like the Unity engine is capable of doing all the things that of all these, and same with Unreal, but it's sometimes it's like maybe it could be easier to do in this one engine over the other. It's,
Correct.
I think we talked about in the Destiny episode about how they had how that game they had to render the whole thing while
Yeah.
they were working on it. And it's like that's an example of hey, when that game came out, it looks great and runs great and everything, it still does, but in the production, the developer side of things, there were some aches and pains about how to.
Yeah, you didn't feel that one on when the controller was in your hands, but you felt it in the release date getting pushed back and the game getting reworked. It's
Right.
so. I mean, that's ultimately what an engine is, and why it's like when you say you like the RE engine, you like the things that it spits out very quickly. But it could be done in any engine.
And yeah, we talked about the game engine matters a lot more from the game development perspective. And it's all about choosing what engine will get you from point A to release in the quickest way possible.
And companies sometimes find a way to repurpose that stuff well. How the
They
Siege
do.
runs on the Assassin's Creed Unity's engine, but
And Metal Gear Survive runs on the Metal Gear Solid 5 engine. It was well repurposed.
hey, PT did, so that they know that first person and can
But
work real well in it too.
if you scroll up and down the
Fucking
list
Metal
of
Gear Survive.
the list of Unity games, right? It's every mobile I know you don't like mobile games, but every mobile version of like a console game.
Yeah, I
that
know.
you can
I think
of,
Call of Duty's
Call of Duty Mobile is built in Unity.
yeah.
Elder Scrolls Legends, the card game,
Yeah, a
and
bunch of
and
winners.
Blades, I think, is also built in Unity.
Blades was the real winner.
Yeah, super. All the Mario shit that Nintendo's been putting out on
just
phones.
hit after hit.
You're not hearing my point though.
Sorry, I'm just being a dick.
The point of that is that Super Mario Run is essentially a 2D Mario game like the new Super Mario Brothers games that runs by itself and you hit one button to jump.
Mm-hmm.
And it was easier for them to rebuild that entire thing from the ground up in Unity than it was to take the engine that they built for fucking new Super Mario Brothers.
All these assets and art that they
Yeah.
already have.
Yeah,
No,
to take that thing, the entire engine they built for New Super Mario Brothers, and just put it on iOS. It was easier to rebuild the whole thing from the ground up in Unity, and that's Unity's strength.
That's a great.
Yeah,
I think that's a good thing to end on.
yeah,
But I stand by it in that it's like, I'll play a game that I'm interested in regardless of engine, and I am more than happy to be proven wrong if for whatever reason that Titanfall 3 is on Unity and I'm just like, this fucking feels awesome. Like who knows?
that could happen.
It could happen. I don't know.
There's nothing that would stop it from happening.
My heart's open. The list of games that you named, there are some absolute bangers on there.
yeah.
But
Like how,
it was just a chip on my shoulder that it continuously grew into a bit. But
yeah, like you know how like Jedi Fallen Order was built in Unreal.
yes, that's
and
definitely
and it
Unreal.
feels like absolute fucking garbage to control.
I have no horse in this race, listeners. I haven't played it.
To your point, Unreal without doing a lot of work to it have a distinct feel as well, and a look, as you said, like especially when you pointed the textures thing out, like there's a time, especially later in the 360 and PS3's era, that you would notice certain graphical glitches that made what it was running on very obvious.
Yeah. But yeah, that's,
All right.
That's the story of Unity. I don't really have a conclusion.
No,
we
I
kind
mean,
of covered
we
everything.
concluded.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
new consoles obviously
Yeah.
support the Series X and S and PS5 and
Yeah, I think
all that,
so. Unity.
In many
the
more
thing
years.
that Unity does the best is that their cross-platform support is one of the things that leads to a lot of drawbacks of the engine. Is kind of like that ability to just port it onto anything.
Yeah, I mean, even going back to Night Trap, the new version of it that they just
That
put
was in
out
Unity.
was in
Yeah.
Unity.
That pack of old Doom 1 and 2, that was in Unity.
That was in Unity as well.
The,
yeah.
That Sega Genesis Classics collection on Steam and consoles. That's
Yeah, that
Unity
makes
wrapper,
sense.
where they'll put you in a kid's room with the CRT TV and
That's
everything.
right.
That's
yes.
that's Unity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, and the other thing that they do so well is just this support for platforms. Like Unity was not much, and then the iOS store came out, and then all of a sudden half the popular iOS games were built in Unity, and then Unity was kind of losing a little bit more steam to Unreal, and then all of a sudden VR hits, and as
Yeah.
successful or not as VR is, every fucking VR game is built in Unity.
Yeah.
Like not all of them, but most of them are.
Especially early on.
Yeah, especially early on. And I think that at the end of the day, you talk about like Final Fantasy VII Remake being like, that couldn't be done in Unity, but it could be done in Unreal.
Sorry, I
It's-
was a little hyperbolic.
It's possible, but the thing is, like,
Be a lot of more effort.
there's a lot of games in there that I mentioned that were made by indie developers, whether it be Unity and Unreal, and that's Unity's doing. If Unity never existed, Unreal 4 would just be a thing that you had to pay $1 million to license.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good point.
getting the ultimate goal is to get game development to the hands of more people.
Agreed.
Because there are a lot of barriers to making a game, and there are a lot of people with good ideas, and the lower you can make those barriers, the better.
I think we're all in agreement.
And there are a lot of people with really bad ideas also.
And now we can see them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because Unity made it easy.
Like
Yeah.
the people who made Metal Gear Solid.
All right.
Survive.
Yeah, you love the Fox engine. That game sucks.
That's what Andrew was saying.
I know. I wanted to reiterate.
There's some plugs out. I got an angry P now.
Isn't Monster Hunter Rise made in the? No, that's still empty framework. Never mind. I don't know. Devil May Cry 5 is on the Reach for the Moon engine.
It is.
And
Everyone's favorite engine.
Feels great.
But yeah, thank you for tuning in and listening.
Yeah.
You can find. Oh wait. I know Andrew's got some plugs.
Plugs.
Yeah, I'm okay. If I'm starting off with plugs, sorry.
Yeah, we'll plug the social media after you're done.
Yeah,
But-
so I work on a little fighting game called Rushdown Revolt. It's pretty cool. It's like Smash Brothers crossed with Guilty Gear.
The Unity
It
engine.
is built in the Unity engine. That's why, I mean, you guys scraped the bottom of the barrel for experts on the subject, but you found me.
Yeah.
Very funny.
And yeah, so by the time this airs, we ought to have our latest playable character available. So you can check that out at rushdownrevolt.com and get yourself some early access.
And it's a 2D game, so you know it feels awesome.
Well, it is a 3D asset
That's
game
what I meant.
that
Yeah, sorry.
operates on a 2D plane.
Yes.
And it
Sorry.
doesn't feel like every Unity game, because who could possibly think that every Unity game would feel the same?
All the 2D ones feel different. No, I'm just kidding. I did not mean to disparage the artists who are creating 3D models like and
You hear that, Cuphead people? He hates you.
No, I don't. I love
Um,
them.
But yeah, thanks.
Please release your DLCs at
Yeah.
some point. I want to
Oh
play
yeah,
it.
speaking of games made on Unity, Hollow Knight Silk Song
Yeah.
and Hollow Knight.
Eh,
Yeah, I
care
don't like
about-
Hollow
Yeah, I
Knight.
don't care about Hollow Knight.
But a lot of people
lot of people love it.
really want Hollow Knight Silk Song to come out.
Yeah. Including a good friend of ours. So I apologize for I didn't play it. So I'm sure
Yeah.
it's wonderful.
Thank you for listening. If you want to find more, including our Unreal episode that I talked about, and what else did we mention? We mentioned a couple of them. You can find all those and more at hotbuttoncast.com.
yes.
You can find the podcast on any podcast service that you want. Just go on there and look up Hot Button or Hot Button Podcast. You should find us. And yeah, you can follow our social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Hot Button Cast. And yeah, I think that's it.
All right.
Thanks for having me. Oh, and
Yeah,
I just
thanks
wanted
for
to
coming
say
back.
Monster Hunter
Nice to
Rise is on the Reach for the Moon engine. So there you go.
Hell
Is it
yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Hey, that's stupid.
What
Thank you, Andrew, for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to have a good engine.
All right. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.